how they collide. But now they're shaking, they're shaking, they're shaking, they're shaking. I can't be torn between the darkness and the light. 'Cause I'm breaking, I'm breaking, I'm breaking, I'm breaking. No, I couldn't be strewn away like beads on the wind, like spiderwebs breaking at the hand of innocence. These stars, they take the life from you. They breathe me to the smallest growing seed. It breathes its breath of fire higher. And still you see the sky. It bends your knees when all is subtlety arrives. You breathe its breath of fire higher. No one could be strewn away like weeds on the wind, like spiderwebs breaking at the hand of innocence. No one could be strewn away like weeds on the wind, like spiderwebs breaking at the hand of innocence. No one could be.
You're listening to the Sea Realm podcast. Turn on, tune in, and take heart.
Neil, you mentioned briefly the leaders of various countries, and there does seem to be a lot of churn, a lot of relationships, a lot of power structures which had seemed really stable for a very long time are suddenly shaking to pieces, and we have not seen the new order arise yet. It's all we're seeing right now is just the broken pieces of the order, which obviously is no more. And I wonder if that, if what we're seeing in the Middle East and just the way that this whole story is being told to the population at large is indicative of anything that you have been talking about for a long time now.
I think it is important that always preceding a new way of doing things is a destruction of the old way of doing things. And I don't think that's anything to be afraid of. It isn't the case that you can move from one moving train that is going north and just jump across from the tram, what do you call them here, the cars, to the other train that's moving south without actually getting off. So you have to get off and stand there in the wilderness, scratching your head, looking at both trains disappearing. It's not possible to smoothly step from one system into another. There's always a point where we had a certain, let's say, equilibrium for a long time. And as somebody recently said to me, there is this thing in physics, in particle physics, of disequilibration, where a system, before it coalesces into something new, has to lose its equilibrium. And that is what we're seeing now. And to some extent, I agree with previous writers and commentators and thinkers on this, that it's not a bad thing that this happens. And it's also not something that is entirely within the control of the powers that be, the elites that shuffle the cards around. they're in a state of anxiety that is not far away from everyone else's. So it's not something that they are in total control of. So conspiracy people can kind of take the foot off the accelerator a bit, because it's not quite like that. It doesn't quite work like that. Things are fundamentally weird, and nobody really gets to pull the levers on every single thing that goes on. You can just steer things a little bit, surf left or right a little bit, and that's about it. So this disequilibration, to me, is a sign that the consciousness is changing, and where there was extraordinary deceits before that went completely unchecked, that's becoming less possible now in governmental circles and in elite circles. It's not so easy to do that anymore. So there is a fundamental shift in the power structures from localized pockets and states and counties and organizations and so on to hugely centralized edifices. And that's where a lot of the comment about this extraordinary division of the earth into just a few small sectors, like this huge European superstate, and the disintegration of the US dollar, which seems to be almost upon us, or if not has already happened, and there's just this surrogate just tiding us over till this Amero, this American Mexican currency comes in. All these ideas and things being put into place, contingency plans, they are contingencies for trying to accommodate this change. And for me, the best way to anticipate change, as I said recently in an essay on the website, is to actually be that change and to be part of that change, not as directed by somebody like Obama or somebody even like Gandhi, from where he steals half his stuff, I gather, but more in the sense that if you can change what you do yourself on a day-to-day basis and where your resources come from, and again, not just your material resources, but your social and emotional resources, and where does your inspiration come from? Where does your fulfillment come from? How much joy is there? Where do those things come from? How are you creating them? Or are you just expecting to consume them from elsewhere? So the idea of consumption being slowly diminished is a key resonator for me in these times, because people are not consuming in the way that they used to do. Despite any statistics and any polls that come out, if you walk around a large British or American shopping mall 20 years ago, and then fast forward 10 years and look at it, and then fast forward to today and look at it, it's very, very different inside who's actually in there now, and the demographic of people who are in there now, and who is considering consumption at that material level as a leisure activity that is satisfying. That's very different now. So even in the mainstream, even at a basic common level, if I can put it that way, just in neutral terms, people are beginning to understand that there's some sort of obligation, if you're going to do something about making things better, to actually create that for yourself, not only in what you choose to buy and what you don't choose to buy, and kind of punishing Walmart when they do something naughty, or punishing McDonald's when they do something unpleasant, but actually totally reconsidering the whole way that happens, in terms of not only what you buy for the resources that you put in your mouth, but also for the things that cultivate your mind. So the drop-off of watching cinema releases and believing popular music to be any sort of representative slice of what people want to hear is not purely due to digital revolutions and stuff. It's because people know it's fundamentally low quality, it's low fidelity. It doesn't actually give you anything. It's an expression of something that is really quite dehumanizing. And so there's a shift in that. This state of disintegration, which is quite a natural thing, it's quite an organic thing, which precedes a new way of doing things. And what people aren't sure about is, well, I know I don't want to do this anymore, But I hand on heart,